As of July 2024, home buyers like yourself are now going to have to negotiate with their real estate agents their commission before they even go look at a single property or have a conversation. They need to negotiate how much they're going to get paid. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a breakdown of just the changes that you should expect as a home buyer, but not only that, but some strategies you can use to save the most amount of money as possible. Because unfortunately, on top of saving your down payment, saving your closing costs, getting educated, making sure that you buy a decent place, you now have to also worry about this money that you're going to have to pay to this agent. So let's first and foremost talk about some of the changes that just happened. Okay. So first and foremost, the commission lawsuit, I've seen a lot of things being spoken about. I've seen news articles saying the 6% commission is gone and this, that, or the other is gone. And they really are sensationalizing it, when reality, this can be broken down into two very easy to understand concepts. One is the MLS can no longer list buyer's agent commission. And the second thing is buyers will now have to enter a written agreement with their agent. Really, those are the two main changes. So basically, without the guarantee that the buyer's agent is going to get paid, they now have to get that guarantee from you, the home buyer. Okay. So all the nonsense of the news that you're hearing as of yet, really just focus on these two main items. The MLS can no longer advertise or display what the commission they're paying the buyer's agent is, and buyers now have to enter into a written agreement with an agent that's representing them. That's it. So basically, a good understanding of this is before, seller paid the listing agent money, seller paid the buyer's agent money. Now, what the amount that they've been paid, it really varies state to state, city to city, and really almost like how in demand it is needed to get an agent. But I can say, look into this article that I'm seeing here, that according to industry data, the average commission rate in the United States in 2022 was 5.37. This is usually split between both parties, so we can assume on average they're getting 2.5% to 3% each based on industry data. Of course, commissions are not standardized, as we're going to talk a little bit later. So there cannot be like a standard commission, right? Everything is negotiable. So on average, the seller would pay 2 to 3% to the listing agent and would pay 2 to 2.5% to the buyer's agent. And you as the buyer just had to worry about your own stuff, down payment, closing costs, etc., etc. So what's going to happen now is the seller's going to have to worry about the listing agent, and the buyer's agent is going to have to worry. Buyers are going to have to worry about their buyer's agent. Now, I'm seeing a lot of chat with people saying, well, this is great. I can just essentially just call listing agents now anytime I want to look at a house. But here's the thing. Let's say you go to a house. You call the listing agent and you say, hey, how are you? I'm here. I'm representing myself. I would like to look at the house. Well, the thing is, when that listing agent shows up to show you the house, they're actually not representing, well, they are going to represent you, but you're agreeing to a limited representation. So now the listing agent is going to represent both you and the seller. And now you are agreeing to limited representation. And in some states, they even need the seller's permission if they're going to get into a dual agency agreement like that. So you're going into the agreement with the listing agent not being able to fully disclose everything, research for you, et cetera, potentially opening up even more lawsuits down the line, because the dual agency is really fickle and there's been a lot of issues that's been come with that. So it's not perfectly clear. And if you get that same agent saying, well, can you go show me these other houses in the block? Well, now that listing agent has to get into an agreement with you, right? So it's going to create a lot more work, and this is going to be interesting to see what happens. But anyways, let's get back to it. So now that we have a good understanding of what's changing and how it works, let's talk about the actual negotiation that you're going to have with your buyer's agent. So first and foremost, let's just get over the basics here. Buyer's agents are used to getting, as I said earlier, according to the commissions in 2022, they're used to getting 2 to 3% of the purchase price. So if we look at the numbers, a $300,000 house, they're making $7,500 to $9,000, $500K, $12,000 to $15,000. Now, recently in one of my live streams, you might have seen it, the one where I talk about this stuff. I asked my chat, hey, what do you guys think? What would you be willing to pay a real estate agent? And funny enough, they all were saying about $3,000 to $5,000. Now, the big thing that I'm hearing from a lot of people is that the 2 to 3% made sense when houses were like under $200K. Funny enough, $200K, if you get 3% of that, that's $6,000. So it seems like that 2 to 3% rule probably should have started being adjusted as soon as houses really elevated above $200K. And it seems like we're kind of getting to that point. Sorry for the bump on the mic. It seems like we're getting to that point just naturally because of what's going on. So now what's going to happen in the future? Well, the thing is, it's unknown. we are still early on in the stages. We don't know, but the important thing is that we all need to really understand is because there's a lot of hatred going on towards agents saying you guys deserve this. There's a lot of chat about how sellers and buyers are saving money, but let's just get this fact really straight. The only one saving money here is the seller. Okay. This agreement that was settled or whatever is not saving anyone except sellers. Okay. Buyers are the ones have to worry about paying their agent, have to have these difficult agents, and if anything, even if it's a lot less, has to now pay the buyer's agent. So sellers did this for themselves. If there's this whole idea that they did it to save the market, it's not. The sellers are saving more money, okay? And here's the really important thing that you need to know. I think we're going towards a flat fee structure. I think the idea of a percentage is going away. I'm going to get a certain amount of percentage. And I also don't think these percentage amounts are going to be this high. The thing that you need to really remember, though, is there's no such thing as standard commissions. There cannot be standardized commissions. Everything is absolutely negotiable. So if your agent starts telling you, this is the common thing that we pay buyer's agent, you're not supposed to say that. Even me saying, like, I'm using industry data standard for that number before. I cannot tell you this is the standard commission because this is not allowed. We're not supposed to do that. So some ideas here. So even though I cannot give you the specific numbers, I'm going to use the numbers that my chat gave me. Let's say most people are like, okay, let's do 5K just as a number. Let's say the 5K ends up being what your agent is like going to charge you to help you and represent you buy a house. Well, what I feel a lot of sellers are going to say, or a lot of buyer's agents are going to say, is we'll get the seller to pay for the commission. Sound like a politician already. We're going to get Mexico to pay for that. Remember that a few years ago? Anyways, so we're going to get the seller to pay for the commission. Don't worry. But here's a problem with that you guys really need to know. Even with the seller paying, you are still getting into a written agreement beforehand. So it is wishful thinking to say, well, the agent's going to get the seller to pay for it. But we don't know the situation yet, right? So if the agreement says we're going to get the seller pay for that, but then you find a house where you're not able to get the seller pay for that, well, you still signed an agreement. Therefore, you will now have to cover the commission. So this idea that you're going to get away with it or like, the seller's going to pay for the commission, I don't have to worry. Well, if there's no out in that contract or that agreement, then you're paying for it. And here's the other thing. If you get an agent that says, oh yeah, I'm going to charge you 2 to 3%, let's say buying a $400,000 house, 10K plus. Oh yeah, I'm going to get my money, but don't worry. They're going to charge 2 to 3%. And like, don't worry, I'm going to get my money from the seller. You don't have to worry about it, okay? So yes, once again, the same issues before. The written agreement will make, if you get in a situation where the seller's not paying, well, now you're going to have to cover it. But the thing is, too, if the agent is successful in being able to get, let's say it's a $500,000 house, so that would be, $15K. They'd say they are successful in negotiating that commission for themselves. What if that, 15K would have gone to you instead in savings, right? Because once again, this money is only benefiting the seller. It's not, no one else is benefiting from this whole commission thing happening. So, that would have, hey bro, what if you gave that to why didn't you give some of that to me? Right? So what I think is going to happen is when you're negotiating with these agents, I think there's going to be two numbers that you guys end up settling on. Well, actually, I think there's going to be two scenarios. The first scenario is there's a minimum, and if I don't get the seller to pay for it, you cover this. And this hopefully will be a smaller minimum. And then this is the commission that I actually want, which will probably this will probably be 50% of what this commission is. But I need to get the other half from the seller. So just throwing out a number here, using that number that my chat gave me, $5,000, be like, hey, my minimum commission is $2,500. And I want the whole commission to be $5,000, but I'm not getting $5,000 unless I get the seller to give me $2,500. And basically, you pay the buyer and the seller, the seller's agent. This buyer and the seller are splitting that commission. So if you're getting into an agreement like this, you have to understand one thing for sure: you have to be comfortable losing this? Maybe the agreement says I'll get the seller to pay the entire $5,000 or something along those lines. I don't know. But either way, at worst case scenario, you're going to lose that much. Have it be a number that you're absolutely comfortable with. Don't just sign an agreement where this, hey, I'm going to get my 3% and I'm going to get it from the seller. And there's absolutely no outs. Because if you sign that agreement, you get a house where the seller's not covering any commission, and you're like, well, I want the house. And the agent's like, well, if you're going to buy it, you have to buy it with me. And you agreed to pay me 3%. So it's time to pay up. And yes, there's true. There's a lot of talks with lenders potentially having to pay that commission with their fees or whatnot. But then you're going to pay the end of that because the rate has to go up or something along those lines, right? So whatever, I think this is a much more suitable option. Have the whole commission have to be split 50-50 or have the seller pay for it. And if there is a minimum, have that be something that you can easily manage. Okay, so there's two things here. You need to be comfortable with losing that minimum average and saying, this person helped me, it's worth that. So this is probably not going to be a super high number, but it's going to be a moderate number, and have it be to that point where that whole commission, if they're able to get an additional $2,500, like, okay, well, good for that agent. I'm okay not getting that on my return, because basically any money that they're able to get for their commissions is money that could have gone towards your closing costs, right? So that's just how you have to think about it in this new world, unfortunately. The second model that I see potentially happening is like, hey, whatever I get in closing costs, we're going to split it down the middle. Or we're going to split it 60-40. We're going to split it 70-30. I don't know, whatever, right? Whatever that is going to be. So that means that agent is incentivized to get as much closing costs as possible, which might not be a bad situation, because if these sellers are now supposedly because agents inflated the market with their commission, right? Is what the idea is. So now, are we going to be seeing prices nationwide reduce 2 or 3%? No, we're not. They're going to keep that price high because they're going to make more money from the sale. So if that's the case, what's going to happen now is the buyer pool will be reduced. I'm going to make another video talking about how the housing market might be impacted, but here's a little teaser. I think the buyer pool is going to get reduced, and I think a lot of listings are going to sit on the market a little bit longer than they thought. So if that agent is incentivized with saying, hey, we're going to split the commissions, whatever percentage you agree on, then they're like, all right, we're going to get them for $20,000. We're going to get them for $25,000. We're going to get them for $15,000 or $10,000. Now, the thing about that, though, is if you get more money in closing costs, could have that been better spent if you got it off the price instead? Right? This is something that builders do. Builders do this where if they have like 4 houses, they sold these 3 for $420, $440, and $440, and they're having trouble selling this one. So they reduce this one to like $430. And somebody says, hey, can I give you $400 for that house? They'll say no, but we'll give you $30,000 of incentives where you can buy your rate down and do all this fun stuff with your closing cost. Why would they not just reduce the price of $400,000? Well, it's because when it comes to comps, this looks like it sold for $430, so it keeps the market of the value of the neighborhood high. So are sellers going to start just selling for a higher price, quote unquote, but the closing costs are going to cover the commission, right? So isn't that better to get it off the price? And honestly, it's probably better to just do a little bit of both. If you're going to have a situation where you highly negotiate, you can get $10,000 off the price and maybe $10,000, $15,000 in closing costs. I don't know, but if the percentage model might work, then it could be something decent. We're like, well, the agent can negotiate $10,000 and he got to keep 30% of it, so he made $3,000 and I made $7,000. I don't know. Then when that situation, you saved the money from paying the agent, but the seller would have probably already given you that $10,000 in closing costs, and now they just saved the money from paying an agent, right? So I'm hoping because of this, the sellers are now ready as a starting base point. The money that you save paying commission for an agent should now go directly to the buyer in closing cost. Or we reduce the price 2 or 3% as a starting baseline. We're not even considering that because in this current environment, with sellers paying agent commissions to buyers agents, I'm still able to get them to reduce their price and do closing costs. So now that they're going to save that money, they should be giving more on top of that. You know what I'm saying? So you need to look at it this way. You need to save money from everybody now, because basically this whole rule changing is affecting you the most. So now you need to go in and tackle this. So let's get back to the subject at hand. So with the commissions in hand, I'm seeing there's basically this option. Either there's a minimum that you have to negotiate, have it be something that's feasible for you to, they're like, okay, well, I'll pay this agent X amount of dollars. And maybe if there is like another level where they're able to get a certain amount from the seller, you're okay giving that. Basically, you have to look at the closing costs that they're able to get from the seller as a pool. How much are you comfortable giving some of that to them, right? So you're paying the agent $2,500, and whatever this amount's going to be, you're comfortable giving that from the pool of closing costs to them. And if they don't end up getting closing costs, then that's all the money they're making, right? So basically, now I'm kind of thinking about it as I do this. Basically, the minimum will be something coming from your funds. The entire commission, if they're able to get it, is something that you have the ability to either get from the closing costs to give to them, or you're still paying their end, and then you're making up the rest with the closing costs. So don't think as like when they say the seller's going to pay for it, don't think of it like, oh, the seller's paying for it out of their own hard-earned money. Think of it as like they were able to negotiate this much closing costs that now belongs to you, the buyer. How much are you comfortable giving that to them? And same strategy here. If there is a percentage model, that's closing costs that were negotiated, yes, by the agent for your behalf. So now they belong to you. So how much of that money are you comfortable giving away? If it is 50% and they get $30,000 in closing costs, they just made a $15K. And you can say, well, they deserve it, whatever. But once again, like you could have probably kept more of that. I'm thinking, I don't know if we're going to go 50-50. I'm thinking more like 70-30. Who knows? But at the end of the day, my beautiful drawing, you can tell when I've prepared versus and I'm just doing it there. At the end of the day, one thing to really importantly understand here is we're still in the new of this. We're still not, there's no standard there. We haven't figured anything out. This could all completely change, but you need to prepare yourself nevertheless. If you're looking to buy, all this gets in effect July. So if you're looking to buy anytime after July, this is something you have to start preparing and planning for. Yes, unfortunately, it does suck, and yes, it impacts you. But I'm hoping that long term, this ends up being a lot more better. I've been saying forever that agents, I mean, we've had it very, very good. Buyers agents have had it very good. They're making an excess amount of money, and I think that gravy train is now over. Speaking of gravy train, terrible time to have launched this, but I now have my own agent referral service. That's right. I'm now myself running it, meaning I have a conversation with you. I personally find you the agent. I talk to them. I stress test them to make sure they're actually solid, and then I connect you guys. So if you're interested in getting an agent referral from me, check out the Home Buyers Guild. That's right. You become a guild member. You basically have a conversation with me. You get connected with an agent, and I send you all of my home buying resources for free. You don't have to pay for that. Basically, how I get compensated is a referral based on what the agent makes. Once again, terrible time to have launched it, but you know, it's just how it rolled out. Thank you guys so much. If you're interested in joining the Discord's below with all kinds of good stuff in there. Appreciate you guys. See you on the next one.